Welcome back to the channel. This time we're going over the Roman side of astrology. In my last astrology video, we went over the Greek mythology, which would be Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. The Roman side of the mythology is going to be the planets, so Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Oh wait, and Pluto, still technically. Astrologers give Pluto the respect it deserves. Let's get started with Mercury, the closest planet to the sun. Although not the hottest, do you think it would be? It has two very distinct sides to it. That one side that is burningly close to the sun, and then the other side that's completely dark. Mercury is attributed with communication, negotiation, curiosity, and trickery. Now, if we go into the mythos of Mercury, we'll see why. This is the story of gods and men. Roman citizens knew that Mercury was a trickster. However, they still prayed to him because he always answered, and preferred to spend his time on Earth. Unlike other gods, Mercury was frail and perverted the power of speech and negotiation. Mercury ruled over merchants as well as thieves. Needed the gift of gab to keep the peace. If all else failed, he had a get-out-of-jail card in his staff. Gifted by the sun god Apollos, Mercury had a staff that could mend any argument and do some other magical tricks, as we'll see. One day, Mercury was approached by the other gods. "Why do you keep going down to Earth for such personal human attention?" Mercury shrugged. "They are much like us. They manipulate and are manipulated. They control their destiny more than we realize." Mercury went down to Rome in disguise. Dressed as a beggar, he approached other humans and begged for food. 3 times he was denied and began to resent the humans. Finally, one man gave him food and said, "Please have this. I have enough." "Are you sure? Are you rich?" asked Mercury. "No, I am a servant, but I have no need for earthly gains." Mercury was impressed by this generosity and followed the man that night. The man was a guard to a herd of horses. Mercury decided to test the humbleness of this man and proceeded to steal the herd from the field. The guard stood up and tried to run towards the herd, but Mercury stepped in, stopped him, and said, "Tell no one of this, and I'll give you a sack of gold, enough to free yourself." The guard took the offer and assured he would say nothing. The next morning, his boss came to the field and was horrified. "Please tell me where my herd has gone," he begged. "I do not know," replied the guard. "Please tell me, and I will give you 2 sacks of gold." The guard took this offer and told him where his herd is. Because what honor is there among thieves? That guy was a thief anyway. That evening, Mercury approached that guard and chuckled, "You betrayed me thinking there was no honor amongst thieves, yet you comply when given a better offer. You are no more humble than the gods themselves." Before the guard could say anything back, Mercury turned him into a lump of stone with his staff. "There, now you truly don't need of the earth, because that is what you have become." Got him. The best way I can describe Mercury is that they don't generally want power. Instead, what mercurial beings like is causing chaos where there is none, or mending chaos where there is plenty. So I think of the Gemini. The best way I can describe Mercury is that they don't generally want power. Instead, what mercurial beings like is causing chaos where there is none, or mending chaos where there is plenty. So I think of the Gemini side, a bit more reckless. If you remember the Gemini story from my Greek video, it's over Castor and Pollux, some rather dubious twins that get up to some no good, and that's the chaos being interjected into the peace. Whereas the other side of Mercury, that very, very dark side that the sun doesn't even reach, that's the Virgo, tending the garden. And Virgo manages to find peace where there is nothing but chaos. Venetian can be quite fake when you get to know them. The beauty of Venus was the pinnacle of beauty. I didn't write that well. Gods and men fell both for her instantly, and she adored the attention. Venus was not conceived in a womb, but in an ocean, and revealed from a clamshell, much like a pearl. Her marriage to the god Vulcan was a disaster from the start. Their love was strong, but Vulcan wished to contain his wives. But Venus was born of the ocean and would love freely. "I love, it is what I do," she would tell him. His anger would be stopped with a smile, and such beauty was her power. and she used it well. One day, she met Anchises, or rather stalked him from afar. Anchises was the ultimate conquest for Venus, as he was born a prince but chose a simple life. He was a shepherd, and Venus disguised herself as a normal princess to give herself a challenge. However, there wasn't much resistance. Venus had the natural ability to charm quickly and won over the prince, and they had a child together. Venus revealed her true identity, and Anchises asked why she would lie. "You would not love me the same," she said. "No, I would have loved you more," replied the prince. Venus lowered her gaze. "Exactly. Love is not based on status or power." "But it helps," said Anchises. Venus was worried and cautioned him to say nothing, as the gods would be jealous of her mating with a human. Anchises did not comply and spread rumors of his adventures with the goddess. When the rumors reached Jupiter, he threw down a lightning bolt and ended Anchises. Bye. Heartbroken, Venus set her goals on raising their son to be as every bit as kind as his father, R.I.P. The boy's name was Aeneas. He went on to found Rome. With his mother's knowledge of beauty, Rome became the most captivating spot on earth and even impressed the gods. Venus became known as the morning star and as a symbol that your actions are truly what make you beautiful. Got to build a city. No, but in all reality, a lot of these Greek love stories are seemingly simple on the top, but reveal the chaotic nature that humans have always had. I think people like to imagine that humans were very tight-knit about like mating rituals or staying monogamous, but I feel as if plenty of history, archaeology, and stories proves that we've been coming from the other end. We've been very messy with it, and we've been trying to organize into unity. Now, whether that means everyone should free love or everyone should find a life partner, I think that's up to the individual. But the story of Venus teaches us that beauty is a gift. It can be used for self-gain, or it can be used for other people, like building the city of Rome. Oh boy, we're getting into Mars. Get ready for this one, incels. No, I'm joking. But the god of war, Ares, everyone knows this one. Red planet, ruddy red in the sky. It's associated with passion, action, energy, but aggression, and sometimes a little too much aggression, as we can see. This is the story. Great power, great responsibility. The goddess Juno was enraged. Her husband, Jupiter, had just had a child, Minerva, appear out of his forehead. Juno had often turned a blind eye to Jupiter's cheating. But to have a child without her, or any woman at all, was devastating. "It's not right that Jupiter should have a child without a woman. I must do something about this," said Juno. Juno went to the earth and talked to Flora, the goddess of the flowers. Flora had the solution to Juno's issue. A seed that, when consumed, would make a woman pregnant. No man involved. Thus, Juno gave birth to Mars, which simply meant man. His birth was a statement to the rest of the pantheon and bewildered Jupiter specifically. By simply being born, Mars had already fulfilled his purpose. As the child grew, he learned fairness and actions are louder than words. While he was fair, Mars was also quick to anger and gained a reputation for causing more bloodshed than peace over time. With mighty speeches and words of encouragement to soldiers, Mars was aware he was leading them to their death, but would get caught up in the moment and how cool it felt. One day, Mars fell in love with Minerva, but she rejected him. "You are too impulsive and have a reputation," she said. Distraught, Mars sought out the wisdom of Anna Perenna, goddess of time. Anna told Mars to have her as a wife instead of Minerva. "Disgusting! I am a young man and in need of a maiden, not a hag." "Very well," said Anna. That night, Minerva approached Mars and asked him to be his wife. Mars could not believe that his plea had been answered and proceeded to sleep with Minerva. After their romance, Minerva revealed herself to actually be Anna Perenna in disguise. "How could you?" gasped Mars. "Oh, it was too easy. You weren't prepared to listen and got caught up in your ambitions. Your passion is your weakness." She grinned a toothless smile. In that moment, Mars had realized his flaw. Conquest and war is not always needed. One must be willing to listen. Classic story of how your ambitions can blindside you. Just because you want something to be true does not mean it's true. What's the words of SpongeBob? All that glitters is not gold. Getting to the big dog Jupiter. King of kings, the Yahweh, the Sagittarius, house of religion, higher learning, good luck. Associations are abundance, success, power, spirituality. What could possibly be wrong with this? This is the coolest sign ever. Well, it comes at a cost. Ever heard of a deal with the devil? Turns out it's quite similar when it comes to gods. This is the story building an empire. Jupiter had known that the death of Romulus was close. In his spare time, Jupiter had been seeking the earth for the next king of Rome. His searches led him to Numa, a clever boy. Numa desired greatness coupled with fairness. He was open to new ideas and flexible with his own. Jupiter decided this was the future king and implanted the idea in the minds of all the local leaders. Numa was then crowned king, and it seemed as if the role was made for him. Over time, he became popular for introducing a new calendar and farming laws. However, this began to make Jupiter jealous, so he sabotaged Numa's kingdom. Just before Numa was about to lose control, he enlisted the help of the lower gods to get the attention of Jupiter. "Why have you forsaken me, Jupiter? Have I displeased you?" "You have done well," Jupiter replied, "but you must remember to worship me in everything you do." Numa nodded. "It will be done. The kingdom will worship you every day to keep you content." Numa kept true to his word and built a grand temple for Jupiter and offered sacrifice daily. Rome was a grand sight for both gods and men. Even after Numa passed on, Jupiter would smile when he looked upon Rome, seeing the empire he had built with human intervention. The two signs associated with Jupiter classically are Sagittarius and Pisces, and both carry a very similar caution that easy come, easy go. And you tend to, as someone who has a lot of Saturn influence, you can look at these people with jealousy and go, how does it all come so easy to you? But I guess what they don't show off, what's hard to realize, what you really have to dig down, is that they often lose just as much as well. And the story of Jupiter is much the same, that even a beloved king, if you ain't keeping up with your gods, thy God is a jealous God, boy, he'll take that away. So remain true to whatever you're worshiping, whether it's Jupiter, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's a servitor. Loyalty's key. Saturn, mostly known as the bad karma planet or the quiet leader. This often resembles things that do not get the appraisal that they deserve, but often are the reason that everything stays put together. It's represented by the zodiac of Capricorn, which, if you remember from my Greek video, has the saddest story in the entirety of the zodiac. And Saturn is associated with wisdom, equality, harmony, and rules. Terrible rules. Time heals all wounds. As a young god, Saturn noticed the injustice of the heavens. His father and god of the sky, Uranus, would inflict pain on others as a game. Saturn would watch as his father destroyed kingdoms and let natural disasters tear across Earth. In order to save the planet, Saturn usurped Uranus. The people of Earth rejoiced as Saturn was a fair god. He was analytical and capable of negotiating with a heavenly patience. However, this did not last forever. The position of power changed Saturn as he realized there was always competition for his spot as king of the gods. His actions became emotional rather than analytical, and his patience was gone. The paranoia settled, and Saturn would begin devouring his own children to avoid being usurped as his father was. Ops, the wife of Saturn, hid one of her children away, hoping that one day the child would become powerful enough to take the throne. This heir was Jupiter, and there was no contest when the fateful day occurred. Jupiter cast his father out of the heavens, and Saturn landed on Earth as a broken god. Ashamed, he walked across Italy and stumbled upon Janus. Janus was a god with two faces, one that could see forward in time and the other that could see back in time, as we see the time play with Saturn and Capricorn. The advice Janus gave Saturn was simple. Go to the land of Latium, it's in central Italy, and make your home. Why are you helping me? Asked Saturn. You have learned your lesson. Now you can use what you've learned to help others, replied Janus. Saturn loved the solitude, for Latium was rugged in some parts, but it was still close to Rome. Here he learned by watching the people and making his home in his free time. He understood what it meant to harvest, to grow abundance, to be practical. Soon the people saw this and praised him, for his skills increased the amount of crops in the land. Saturn loved this, but was still bothered by the class divide, for he saw many laborers in the land and few owners in their houses. After speaking with Janus, Saturn went to his temple in Rome and let his desires be known to the scholars. After this, the holiday known as Saturnalia was created. Here, servants would become masters, and masters would become servants, dissolving the divide between the classes and ensuring harmony. Thus, Rome entered its golden age. With Saturn, we can see how a little bit of practical application and acknowledgement of suffering can go a long way in keeping the overall stability. Saturn is a planet that shows why rules exist, but it's also the planet that knows when rules need to be broken. Because what if those rules are made by someone like Jupiter? That guy sucks. Uranus, the funniest named planet, it's all about rise and fall and chaos, revolutions, etc. It is associated with Aquarius, the water bearer, an air sign. The planet is seen as one that represents eccentricity, rebellion, progressiveness, but recklessness. Sometimes when we're de-establishing an order, we need to make sure that we have something to replace it. Otherwise, we just destroy, it's just scorched earth, okay? There needs to be a replacement plan. Uranus, Aquarius tend to not always understand that. Here is a story of ruined potential. In the beginning, there was only Terra. She created Earth and loved its beauty, but knew that expansion was needed. Thus, she created Uranus, the sky god to her Earth. Uranus was a radical thinker that would often surprise Terra with his new ideas, such as rainbows and radiant sunsets. However, that radical thinking also had a dark side. As Terra and Uranus grew the Earth, Uranus became jealous of the attention that Terra was giving her offspring. For in the beginning, Uranus received Terra's love alone, but now her attention was divided. So the plan was simple. Get rid of the offspring. In the deepest pit of the earth lied Tartarus, a place of suffering, and Uranus had no issue sending his kids there. When Terra found out about this, she gathered the remaining of her children. We must stop Uranus. His extreme thoughts will end us all. I will do it, said Saturn. I do not fear my father. Terra went down and had the best metal that the earth could offer, shaped into a scythe that could cut off anything, even the arm of a god. While Uranus was sleeping, Saturn entered his room and used the scythe to swipe off the manhood of his father. Blood poured out over the earth, creating nymphs and giants. Then his genitals were thrown into the ocean, where Venus was born from the sea foam. Finally, the pantheon was at peace. Saturn had his rightful throne. However, in the back of Terra's mind, she could not help but wonder, had she simply swapped out one tyrant for another? Dun dun dun. Yeah, well, we already know she did because of the last one. Should have figured something out. I feel like we could have had a better plan than the scythe. But that's Uranus. We had to de-establish the order. We didn't have a plan in place, and now we gotta hope whatever is next was better. Neptune, the big old blue, this is all about hidden powers. That's because it is associated with Pisces, the sign of hidden enemies. Good fortunes, but hidden enemies. Creativeness, but hidden enemies. We see Neptune as the last planet from the sun, or astronomically associated planet from the sun. And the words that we usually associate with the planet are empathy, calmness, turbulence, and sensitivity. Neptune could be a bit of a paranoid planet. If I got any of my Bible fans listening, hello, thanks for this content. Let's go over the Great Flood Greek myth. They had one too. Crazy. Each time Saturn had a child with his wife Ops, he swallowed them whole. For he thought if they were in his belly, they could not take away his crown. Saturn was king of the gods, a title he coveted more than any deity. Ops became clever to Saturn's tactics, and when her child Jupiter was born, she presented to Saturn a stone swaddled in cloth like a child would be. Saturn swallowed the stone and immediately began heaving it out. Out of his gut came all of the children as he was forced to throw up. Shortly afterwards, Jupiter took the crown and became ruler of all. To each of his brothers and sisters, Jupiter provided a role for them on Earth. For Neptune, he was given the waters. At first, this seemed less prestigious than the other powers of land and time, but Neptune would show that his might was in other ways. "We must shape the earth so that people can flourish and worship us," demanded Jupiter. Neptune chuckled. "What is so funny? If this is such an easy task, then you shape the entirety of the earth. I bet you cannot even shift a grain of sand," said Jupiter. Neptune shrugged and tugged on his giant beard. "You fail to recognize that true power comes from within." I don't know why he's like hipster. I just imagined male Pisces like hipster. With that, Neptune raised his trident, and it rose all the waters of the earth. A mighty flood spread across the land until there was nothing but water flowing over all of the earth. As the lands were swallowed, so too did the gods get pulled underneath the currents. Desperate, they all cried out for the flood to stop. Even Jupiter. Neptune, a usually quiet and reserved god, was so caught up that he couldn't hear their pleas. Once he felt satisfied, he commanded his son Triton to blow a conch shell. Afterwards, the waters receded and the land began to take shape. When the gods saw Neptune emerging from the water, they bowed their heads in respect. Even Jupiter. Neptune returned to his throne in the sea, and all of Rome knew that Jupiter was the king of all, but it was Neptune who had truly given the land its shape. When I think of Neptune, I often like to think about perks of being a wallflower, or like in an anime when it's like, oh, I read out. I just like nerd rage and like beat up all the bullies. That's kind of the dreaminess of Neptune, because there is a lot of power in that sort of internal psyche. And when it gets recognized, it can be cruel, and people that are, they can tend to abuse that power. The lesson of Neptune is that even some of the quietest and most sensitive souls contain the most turbulence inside of them if they are given an opportunity to show themselves. Not all those opportunities are good, so I wouldn't press the issue and get on any Pisces bad side. Welcome to the last planet. I still consider it a planet because I'm an astrologer, and this is Pluto. The story of the phoenix, the rise from the ashes, not actually phoenix, but it's associated with Scorpio, which is an intense sign. The word associations we have for Pluto are endings, transformations, rebirths, and intensity. So if you look at where Pluto is in your chart, you can see where a lot of change is going to be occurring in your life. This is the story of rags to riches. Pluto was not like his family. He was not motivated by power or riches. He never appealed to Jupiter for position or destroyed the land for treasures, and believed that he would find value in whatever he was given. Jupiter wanted to challenge his seemingly humble brother. "I have the perfect place for you. You will be lord of the underworld and god of the deepest pits where only the dead sink into. That is your kingdom." If this was meant to annoy Pluto, it didn't work. Pluto truly believed that he would find value in anything he was given. "He will never be adored like us," mocked Jupiter to his siblings. However, while the gods plundered the earth and each other for riches, Pluto molded the underworld into a grand domain. Here he found jewels of the earth that had magnificent value. Whenever Pluto would venture through Rome, he would gift these jewels to the people and would be worshipped as the rich god. This agitated Jupiter, as he was supposed to be the most wealthy, the god of all. Thus, Jupiter devised a plan to have a famous musician's wife murdered. Where's this going? Orpheus was walking with his wife when a viper bit her, and she died instantly. Orpheus traveled to Pluto's underworld and asked for a chance to save his wife. Orpheus played such a lovely music that Pluto agreed his wife could return to the land of the living, but on one condition. Orpheus shall not look back at her as they walk out of the land of the dead. Orpheus agreed and walked all the way back to the entrance without looking at his wife. But at the last second, curiosity overwhelmed him. Before they completely stepped out of the underworld, Orpheus turned and saw his wife. Her body was rotted and her eyes missing. She screamed as she turned to ash, and Orpheus ran to the surface. Orpheus went on to sing about his travel to the underworld and did not portray Pluto well. Pluto became known as a rich god, but with a devious soul. And perhaps that's what Jupiter wanted all along. Pluto was not amused by this news, obviously, but he knew in his heart that he didn't lie to Orpheus, for he was trying to protect him. The knowledge of the underworld is not for the living, and there are some secrets that must be kept from those that are still alive. The story of Pluto teaches us that there is still so much more to learn. And just when you think you have it all figured out, just when you think you're on the top of the world, you realize you don't even know a piece of the whole. You got one Skittle out of the bag, bro. This thing's filled with the rainbow. I don't know. I'm getting pretty tired. This was another group of astrology stories, and I'm really happy to get through all of the Roman ones, because when we understand not only the mythos of the zodiac but also of what the planets are associated with, we get this a pretty easy comprehension of the wheel. I hope you found this information enlightening. This is Haida Lane. I'm spiritually curious for the spiritually curious. I do interviews with spiritualists to try and find all the different ways humans have found to comprehend what we're going through. And I also do, astrology, other religions. I'm really just researching, man. And if you like and subscribe to the video, it helps a lot, gets the message to more people. And then the more people that I can get in contact with, the more spiritualists I can interview. The more spiritualists I interview, the closer we can get to the truth. That's all I had for now.